He's going to start us off by telling us about himself and his books.
You want me to tell you about myself?
And your books.
And my book.
Books if you want.
About myself? What would you like to know specifically? My massive background, things I've done, that kind of thing.
Yeah, if you want, go with it.
Right.
What do you want to share?
I'm happy to share everything, really. Well, my first book was published in, when was it? 1991, when I was 18. And I wanted to be a writer from the age of, from primary school, really. I was that kid at school that would just write stories and annoy everyone with not knowing how to finish them. So everyone else would write 2 or 3 pages and I'd write 30. Didn't mean they were any good, but it meant that I just enjoyed writing. And it was always my favorite subject at school. Weirdly, I didn't actually do English as A-level or degree. I went off and did a year out at an outdoor centre. So I was an outdoor pursuits instructor, teaching climbing, caving, all that kind of thing. And then I did a degree in outdoor education. So I'm a qualified primary school teacher and my specialism was outdoor ed. And then from that, I went and worked in publishing because I thought that would be a clever way to learn about books and writing and that kind of thing. I worked in various publishing-y kind of roles, editing, publishing manager. I've worked for a government organisation like the Adult Learning Inspectorate, and then I ended up working for Ofsted as an editor. I managed a publisher over in Suffolk. I was MD of that for 3.5, 4 years. And then during lockdown, that kind of, I was put on furlough, which is how I ended up getting back into my writing, having been writing before. Yeah, I wrote children's books. I was full-time for quite a few years with that. Wrote under my own name, did a bit of ghostwriting, wrote horror. I've written for Random House and Puffin, Doubleday, OUP, Barrington Stoke, and various others. So yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag of weirdness, my career thing. I worked on a salmon farm for a while, which was interesting. Took some months out and ended up working up on in a salmon farm in Scotland, and that was a very strange experience. So yeah, lots of weirdness, and now here I am living in Somerset writing crime books, which is brilliant. I certainly seem to enjoy myself, and it seems that people seem to enjoy my work, which is amazing. And now here we are having a chat.
Exactly. I have lots of fans of your work. Show us off the book covers.
I did have 5 here, and book 1 has disappeared, and I don't know why, which is a bit odd. Did you take it?
No, although book 1 is the one I've read.
So yeah, book 1 was Grim Up North. Now the title for Grim Up North, I thought was a bit ridiculous when I came up with it, because obviously it's a phrase, isn't it? Oh, it's right, Grim Up North. And I thought, oh, Grim would be a great name. But then I thought, no way am I going to get away with Grim Up North as a title. That's just silly. But then I had a chat with Barry Hutchison, who's J.D. Kirk, Alex Smith, Gordon Alexander Smith, John Mayhew, and others. And they're like, no, it's really good. That works, like Touch of Frost. It's that kind of title. So I went with it and wrote book 1, which was Grim Up North. Then there was book 2, which was Best Served Cold, which came out last October. I followed that up with Corpse Road. And then that was followed up with Shooting Season, which was followed up with, what was the ghost one called? You have 6 books in a year. It's quite difficult to remember. What was that one called? I can't remember at this moment. I'll look in my book. It's book 6. It was called Restless Dead. Restless Dead. Helps if you can remember them, Dave. And this is Death Requiem, which is quite reverses everything. That's the one that came out end of June. And book 7 is out at the end of September, which is Bloodsport. And then book 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm trying to, what I'd like to do is to get through to next July. And that'll be when I publish book 12, which will mean I'll have done 12 in 2 years, which is quite ridiculous.
Do you have a set sort of amount in mind of the Grim books? Will there be an end?
I don't know. I think all stories kind of need an end to a degree, but with something like a detective, they continue doing their job. It's not like it's let's save the world. Oh, the world's been saved. End of story. It's not that kind of thing. With what I've written, it's in many ways it's like a soap opera because it's not. And I think a lot of the readers seem to like this. That it's not necessarily about the big crime. It's more about the characters in the team and their little lives. So those things all have to conclude, but their lives continue. So it's hard to think that Grimm's life or their story up north would ever come to an end as such. Yeah, it might come to a stage where I think, you know what, I need to put an end, draw the series to a close maybe, and then write something else or whatever. But I'm not going to say yay or nay at the moment because I'm enjoying writing them. People are enjoying reading them. And also to keep fresh, I don't necessarily want to only write Grimm for the next 20 years. That would be quite difficult. I think as a writer, you need to keep fresh. So I'm currently working up an idea for another crime series, which I would like to have alongside Grimm and sort of launch next year.
So cover design, because you've got a lot of them out. Do you do your own cover design?
Good God, no. My artistic skills are, well, they have not improved since I was 3. I find it next. Well, my 2 brothers, I'm the eldest. I've got 2 younger brothers, thus, being older than them. And they're really good at art. One of them does sort of cartoony stuff. The other one does weird kind of all kinds of crazy stuff. And I haven't got any of that at all. I can't see pictures like that. I can't communicate that. Trying to communicate with an illustrator as to what I want on a cover, I find it impossible. If I'm decorating a room, I've got no idea what colors to put in there. I just can't do it. I'd love to be able to, but I can't. So the first 2 books, I was helped out by the wonderful Barry Hutchison, who's got some design chops himself. It helps if you've got that. I really haven't. Mine would look like a primary school kid putting some pieces of paper together and doing a collage, but the primary school kids version would be better. And then I've used Andrew Dobble for the other covers. I wouldn't mind giving them a bit of an update. I think they could all do with sort of bringing together a bit more. But people seem to like them. Yeah, that's me in covers. I certainly don't do them. It would be bad. Very bad. All of my creativity skills seems to have gone into the writing. My brothers don't have any interest in writing at all. Find that quite difficult to do. That's my thing. Whereas they do the arty stuff, the colours and the painting and the drawing and whatnot, and the carving and all other kinds of crazy.
Nice. Donna has said hello. So is Andrew in Nottingham. So is Laura.
Hello, everyone.
Donna said, why 12 books in 2 years? That's insane.
In many ways, because I can. Also because you reading types, the crime people, they don't half devour books. And from the perspective of the fact that I can, I've published traditionally. So I know how long it takes for a book to get out if you go that route. So, you first of all got to get accepted by an agent, which can take years and is a nightmare, and they won't necessarily then take on what you've submitted. You've then got to get accepted by a publisher with an idea. And once that's done, it then takes, 6 months to write a book, maybe. Then there's the editorial process. You're talking 18 months to 2 years, really, between an idea and publishing a book, because of all those different stages, all the different people involved between you and actually the thing that you want, which is someone to read your book. So you've got the agent, the editor, the proofreader, the designer, the marketing team, the sales team, the director of the publishing house, the booksellers, and the retailers are king, really. And you're made or killed by those people because of they can absolutely make or break you. But with this, because I've gone indie, so I'm publishing through Amazon, so that's my medium. There is no middle person between me and you, the reader. I can write a book and know I can get it to you pretty sharpish. So I'm doing it. Yes, I'm doing it quick because I can write quick, like Barry can. But I'm not killing myself. I touch type, so a good day, 4,000 words. When I did my last book, I wrote 27,500 words in 3 days. I'd planned to write 15,000, but the characters kept doing stuff, so I just had to keep writing. So the output seems crazy, but if you just do it as a, it's your daytime job. I'm not one of those people who sits in a room and goes, I will write 500 words and I will sweat over them and that will be bad and good and good and bad. I don't do any of that. I just, I know I want to write a chapter today. That'll be 2,000 words. Tomorrow, I'd like to write 2 chapters. That's probably around 3,500, 4,000 words. So you just kind of get into it and let the characters take it. And there you go. And because I haven't got all those other bits and bobs in between, I do send it to an editor, but I haven't got to wait 3.5, 4 months for them to get back to me. It's days, and it's straight to me. It's not to my agent. It's to me, back, done. So it's just a much quicker process, and it's a lot more fun. It's more exciting. And also, readers, as I said, kind of devour these books. If you've got pre-sales of like 5,000 books already sold for your next book, you know that on that day there are 5,000 people reading it, and that within 24, 48 hours, a lot of them will have already finished it. And I get messages saying, "When's the next book out? Need it now." And it's like, oh my goodness. So, readers want the stuff, and that's kind of what it is.
I very rarely buy a book that comes out on publication day and read it on publication day.
No, I don't either. I never have done, but I think because this is, a great deal of what I sell is ebook, it allows that to happen. So people get to the end of a book, they click the pre-order, and then on the day that it comes out, it's just downloaded. So they don't actually have to think about it. Whereas, if it's a physical book, obviously I do sell physical books as well, but they're not, making the effort of going to a bookshop, ordering it and so on. They've just clicked the link at the back of the book. They've liked the other 5 books. Yeah, I'll have the next one. And then they forget about it. And then on launch day, it appears in their Kindle library, ping, next Dave Gatward book, read this. And they read it. So I think that's why it works like that on launch days. It's an entirely different approach.
So one of the things I like to ask people with a long series is, would you do spin-off books? Like spin-off novellas about your other characters?
Yes. And one of the things that we've enjoyed doing, and a lot of people who've read my stuff, Barry's stuff, and Gordon's, Alex Smith's stuff, have noticed there's cross. So at one point, he goes to Alex's detective phones Grimm in one of his books. So there's that kind of thing. And I think, yes, Grimm appears at some point in one of Barry's books on TV or something. So we've got this like cross-pollination between the characters. And, we have this idea that, wouldn't it be fun if they went off and did an investigation together? You never know, it might happen. But with the characters I've got, and the series that I was saying that I'm kind of planning for next year, it is linked to the Grimm series. Grimm this is kind of an exclusive, by the way. Grimm was Frome and Somerset and Bristol, and was sent from that area up to North Yorkshire. So what I would like to do is have, I live down this area, and it'd be nice to have something based here that would be where the detective is. But I can link that to the Grimm universe by having his superintendent in charge of the new detective. You wouldn't need much of a mention, but Grimm could be mentioned. He could maybe come down to see family or whatever. You'd have his superintendent, so you're linking the universes quite easily. You could have someone sent on secondment or on work experience or whatever. And even the characters I've got in the books, I think Matt, the detective sergeant, the DS, he'd be good fun to do. And he's got loads of other things that he does anyway. He's part of the mountain rescue team, and that'd be a laugh. People have asked about prequels. What was Harry up to when he was in the Paras? Could you touch on that when he started out in the police? So there's plenty of opportunity for it, and we'll just see how we do, really.
Andrew wanted to know about the settings for your books, because you said your first book was Grim Up North. So is your book set in the north or Somerset where you live? Are you near the Quantock Hills?
I'm in the Mendips. The books are set in Wensleydale in Yorkshire. So I was born in Bristol. So I have Harry from that area, and then I send him up to Wensleydale where I grew up, and he's based in Hawes, which is kind of the big market town at the top end of the Dale, which is where I lived as a kid. I've got friends still there, so I'm able to check details. I know the area very, very well. I also went and worked for a year in Swaledale, which is one of the sister valleys just over the hill from Wensleydale. And I actually have, I think, yes, book 3, Corpse Road, is set in Swaledale. And Marrick Priory, which is mentioned in that as well, is actually the outdoor centre where I used to work. So I try and make it as geographically realistic as I can. And I'm getting readers who are messaging me saying they're planning holidays now, and or have indeed planned holidays and gone and visited Grimm's haunts. One noticeable one is I mentioned the whole cheese and cake thing, which you're bound to ask me about at some point. But Cockett's Butchers in Hawes is where the cake comes from, and I have the characters go and get cake from Cockett's Butchers or whatever. And the owner of the shop is an old schoolmate, and they're having a lot of people now going in saying, "Oh, we've come because we've read Grimm. Can we have some of the cake?" So, which is really nice. But I think that's really, for me, it's quite important that the books are realistic enough so that people can check on Google Maps if they want, see where the places are, go and visit the area, because it's a beautiful place. And part of it for me is to allow people to explore the Dales through the eyes of these characters, and then maybe go and see the place themselves and go, "Oh, so that's Semawater, brilliant. Oh, nice. And that's Hardraw, and this is the Roman road from Bainbridge over the top of Butterset." So yeah.
I wasn't necessarily going to ask you about that. I was going to say that as someone who lives in Yorkshire, with a lot of Yorkshire relatives, we don't all wear flat caps.
No, absolutely not.
And no. Know each other's neighbours and everything else. But yeah, I did like the little touches of Yorkshireness you had about the sort of fruitcake and cheese and things. My dad eats that.
Yeah, and also with
every Christmas.
The Dales is still very much that kind of small community, and it has changed considerably since I was there, but it's still what it was. People do know each other. People do still have, there's the pine pea suppers still happen. The Gale Methodist Church is still a big part of the community. There's all these little things that still happen. Gospel nights. It's still, the auction mart in Hawes, that every Tuesday that's on. That community still very much exists. And the flat cap, no, not everyone is a flat cap, but farming is a massive part of it's farming and tourism. That is the Dales. And that's what you've got. It's not Heriot. They're not all walking around with trousers held together with baler bind, but it's still got that to it. And in a way, some of what I write is slightly nostalgic, but there's nothing wrong with that. You're not writing reality. This is fiction, and sometimes a little bit of a rose-tinted spectacle look at things is no bad thing.
Fair point. So one of my favorite questions to ask is, would you make a graphic novel of one of your books?
Me personally, God no. Imagine that. I can't write. I can't draw at all. But yes, I'd love to see it. It'd be amazing. I'm not sure it would work. A graphic novel of Grimm in the Dales. And I think maybe not of Grimm, but maybe some of the horror stuff I've written might be quite interesting, because there's a lot more visual stuff going on. But I'm certainly, if there was an artist who came up along and said, I've done on spec of chapter 1, what do you think? But it's a different skill, breaking down your story into how a graphic novel works, with the little bits of text, the dialogue, and the way it all flows, knowing how to direct an artist that way is something I would have to really learn. And I like graphic novels, but I've not grown up with graphic novels, if that makes any sense. So it would be a difficult thing for me to do. Whereas with, I'm Barry, JD Kirk, he's kind of grown up with, he's a much bigger into the whole graphic novel thing. He knows how they work. He knows how to construct them. He's done comics. He's written for comics. He knows how that works. I don't. It's not to say that I wouldn't learn and be able to do it, but it would be a big jump and a big use of my time. But it'd be fun though. I mean, I'd never written crime, and it was because of the likes of Barry and others. They were saying, no, give it a go. And I thought, well, it's an opportunity to learn to write, a different thing. So yeah, why not?
I do like graphic novels, and there's some really good crime ones out there. So it is a genre that can work.
Send me some of the titles and I'll have a look.
Laura has asked if you'll be referencing COVID in your books, or do they exist in an alternate COVID-free universe?
It's the alternative COVID-free universe. I think we've got enough COVID being mentioned left, right, and centre at the moment, and I just don't think it's necessary for the stories to start dealing with that. Maybe in a later series or something else, but right now, no. Because I think as well with that, it would influence not just one book, because I'm writing, every couple of months. It's not like one book is 1 year and the next book is the next year. They are, 1, 2, 3 months apart. So the story is 1, 2, 3 months apart. So I would then have to have 6 books, all with COVID in them and the restrictions and all the rest of it, and that could be quite limiting creatively.
I think I would like to see a book at some point sort of set with the COVID and the restrictions, because I think there's some potential for really interesting crime stories.
Yeah, I'm reading. I've got a big pile of books next to my bed. I've got a horror one that's based entirely on COVID, and it's kind of taking COVID into the whole, yet again a zombie apocalypse thing. And horror is obviously that genre that can do massive pandemics very, very well. Everyone's, got a terrible thing. But I think it will happen, and I'm sure it will. But I think at the moment people are just cracking on with what they're writing, and also, if it's the traditional publishing world, what you're reading now was probably written 2 years ago. So, if there's going to be COVID stuff, unless they've managed to push it out really sharpish, you'll get the COVID stuff next year, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. I think a lot of people, there was a bit of a mixture in the pandemic, wasn't there? Some people reading a lot of pandemic-based literature, and some people avoiding it.
Yeah.
As much as they could.
Absolutely. And, grim is escapism. It is crime, but it's not hard boiled as such. It's not, horrendously violent. It's a team of people who actually get on well, generally. So it's kind of nice stuff with a bit of murder that happens and they have to sort it out. So I try not. It's based in real life-ish, but it's kind of fantasy-ish, isn't it? I'm not trying to challenge any. All I'm trying to do is write stories that people enjoy, about characters they like and they want to find out more about. That's it. I'm not trying to change the world with the words that I use. I'm not trying to prove a point. It's just nice stories about decent characters. And yes, can I write some more, please? And, basically that's it.
According to Leslie Lloyd, 56 Days is COVID-based.
Is it?
By Catherine Ryan Howard. Andrew wants to know if your books are likely to appear on TV, because he'd like to see the backdrop in Yorkshire.
I have no idea. It would be fun. In many ways, I haven't got really any control over that. It often happens with people approaching a writer. When I was writing sort of through the traditional way of things, you'd have this dream of, imagine if I sold the film rights, imagine if I sold the TV rights. That was like the pinnacle. And it's not anymore with the way I'm doing this now. That I make a living writing, which is very difficult to do. And I'm happy with that. I'm not going to. What I don't want to do is then get distracted thinking, I must get a film doing, I must get a TV series. And it would be fun, essentially. Grimm is James Herriot meets, Death in Paradise. It's quite a ludicrous premise that you have all this crime going on in a small area. So Midsummer Murders is the same thing, but that's why it's fun to do. You have the recurring characters, the same area, and stuff happens. It would be fun. It would be a brilliant setting. It really would be, you know. And who could resist James Herriot meets Death in Paradise?
Well, Yorkshire is a beautiful county as well. It's a good
Absolutely.
backdrop for everything.
It's a perfect backdrop for a nice little detective series, you know. So if anyone out there happens to be a producer, give us a call.
Do you read a lot of crime?
I'm currently reading. Where is it? It's over there. I'm currently reading, he says. Look, I've currently got this on the go. There we go. Divided House, J.M. Dalglish. So I've got that on the go. I read all genres, really. I don't really stick to one. I think there's a danger if you just, you know, okay, you write crime, so I know I will read crime all the time and blah blah blah. There's a danger with that in that you can then end up sounding like another crime writer, and that's the last thing you want. I mean, you're always going to pick up things from other writers, so I try and read across board. Like we were saying earlier, you know, I'm reading Ready Player 2 at the minute. I've got Divided House on the go. I've got a couple of horror books on the go. I try to just read quite broadly, best as I can.
So who are your I call them my shut up and take my money authors, the people who it doesn't matter what they release, I'm just going to buy their book because it says their name on it. Paul Tremblay is one of mine. He's a great horror writer. If Paul Tremblay brings a book out, I'm just going to buy it. Who are yours? Are those?
Clive Barker was, I've always loved Clive Barker, and when he brought out The Scarlet Letters, I had to get that, and that's in hardback, and I've got that signed. And I ended up appearing in a DVD about Clive's work, which Arrow Video did a box set of the first 3 Hellraiser films, which are fantastic. This is me going into the other genre that I love. And the director, Jake West, you know, we knew each other, and he said, would you be happy to come on and talk about Clive's books? You know, you read the Books of Blood, you know, and his creativity is just ferocious, absolutely ferocious. It's hard. I think because I read so widely, I don't generally go out and go, I must have that book by so-and-so. I kind of have favorite books, like Dark Matter by Michelle Paver. That's a beautiful book. It's more like that. And as a kid, I was very, what was his name? He did The Weird Stone of Brisingamen. But Alan Garner Alan Garner I adored and still think it's wonderful. You know, his work is wonderful.
See, I read multi-genres, but still have favorite authors in them.
Yeah.
I'll just buy whatever they put out. Like, honestly, Joe Hill is another horror author for me. Don't care what he publishes, novel, horror, whatever it is, it's going to be in my basket.
What was the short story collection he did? 30 Ghosts or something?
20th Century Ghosts.
Yeah, I loved that. I thought that was fab. I wasn't so sure about Heart-Shaped Box. Found that a bit difficult. I've got his graphic novel collection that my eldest son's got at the moment. I bought it for him, so he's actually reading it. So I need to get that back. Yeah, Joe Hill's brilliant.
He is. I have a signed copy of Heart-Shaped Box.
Oh, nice. And he did. Is it Lock and Key or whatever it's called? Yes.
Yeah, that's his graphic novel collection.
Yeah, I enjoy that as well. That's really good.
It's a good read. You need to get Leslie Lloyd back on track because she said she likes the Herriot books, but you've put her off with your description of Grimm as being a blend with Death in Paradise. Because Leslie Lloyd is someone you want reading your books.
That's hilarious.
So get her back on track. Give her a good description of the Grimm books.
I think that's just a joke I always say because, you know, it's set in Herriot country and it's that kind of, you've got a detective with a little team doing that thing. So if you think of Midsummer Murders, it's the same kind of thing. It's that kind of team in a little area. And that's what it is. You can't get away from that kind of, I mean, that's that's the way it works. But the great thing, what I've loved about writing Grimm, is just exploring the countryside and exploring the area again, and seeing it through Grimm's eyes, and having him meet these people, you know, how the way he's been accepted into the area, and just, you know, exploring that whole part of it, because and seeing it through the seasons as well. It's very important for me that when I'm writing it, that, you know, you get to kind of, it's very, the senses to me are very important when you're writing. So a character, it's not, they don't just experience the world they're in through what they see and hear. It's what they taste, it's what they smell, it's what they touch. So for me, it's very important that, you know what the weather's like in Hawes in Wensleydale, whether it's snowing or whatever, you know, the smell of it, all that kind of stuff is really, really important. So it's very rural based. There's farming, there's very countryside-y. It's very, you know, the locals are very key. There's the mechanic, and it's very much based on not just what I know, but actually I have friends up there who check what I'm writing. So, you know, it's still kind of current, which is quite nice. And I'm getting more and more readers from the Dales joining in and reading the books now, which is really nice. So, yeah. Death in Paradise is great fun.
I've never seen it.
It's fun. It's hilarious. It's great. Very well written.
I don't have a TV license.
Dear, oh dear.
Excellent. We should get more reading done. So, UK CBC favourite questions. What are your most memorable moments as an author?
Most memorable moments as an author? I remember winning the Leeds Children's Book Award. That was amazing because I wasn't expecting to win it. That when was that? 2000, and the awards over there, 2011. And I was with, I think it was myself, William Hussey, and there's four other authors and myself, and they were we'd all had an introduction. There was like 500 kids in front of us in this big room, and I was just texting my then wife, "Oh, I'll be seeing you soon," because I wasn't expecting the authors I was next to, you know, they're award winners, they were all really well known. And then my name was called out, and I kind of did a double take. So there was another Dave on the row, but it was me, and that was quite a shock to actually be, because it was an award that was it was voted for by the kids. It wasn't by bookshops or publishers or critics or anything like that. It was the kids that voted. So that was a fantastic moment. Memorable moments generally, every time you get a new book out, it feels brilliant. You just can't. It's always great. It always feels great. Seeing Grimm come out and doing this as an independent author has been, and still is, a massive learning experience, and I'm loving it. So to pick out an individual moment from that is quite difficult. When I got my first book published by Hodder, that was quite nice. Very nice, actually. Going into, actually, no, my first book was when I was writing under the name Jake Lansing for Puffin. And I remember taking my so Elijah was, how old was he then? 2.5. And I remember going into W.H. Smith's and finding my book on the shelf with him. That was ace. That was a nice moment.
Okay, Sam's favourite question, who does your chats with me, is what's the most recent scene that you wrote without giving away a spoiler?
The most recent scene that I've written.
Mm-hmm.
What was I doing today? Can I give anything away from that? Let me just think. I can't tell you that one because that's giving too much away. Oh, I've got there's one where one of the scenes is, it's where there's been something that's happened with someone and they're in a bad way, and I've got a helicopter coming in, the air ambulance, and Harry's turned up, and he's got to deal with the fact, there's an air ambulance there, there's another ambulance there, his team are on side, and they've got a house that's been broken into, someone who's been beaten up to the point of nearly being dead, and this is a bloke whose dog was stolen, and they found the corpse of this dog, which is, it's all about the whole blood sport thing, which is what the book's about. So that's what I've been doing. You kind of visualize the helicopter coming in, and it brings back Harry's brief memories of being when he was in the Paras, and he knows what the sound of the helicopter is, but the last time he's got memories of seeing those in combat and all that kind of stuff. So, but this lands in the middle of in Redmire in the Dales. There's a green there, and it lands in the green to take the person away.
Yorkshire has a really good air ambulance because it's completely independent.
Yeah.
So it can actually go across borders and things,
Yeah.
whereas other ones don't.
Yeah.
The only other facts I know about helicopters, according to my brother, is that they glide really badly.
Do they? I've flown a helicopter, and they do that thing where if they power cut, they then just they don't plummet. They just rotate and glide down to the ground. But gliding that way, I can imagine, not the best.
Yeah, my brother's a pilot.
Cool.
He flies planes. Very big ones. Which is quite cool.
Yeah.
So we've got a question here that says, which of your own books would you like to be a character in?
All of them. No. In many ways, when kind of in all, because there are facets of who you are in all of your characters, I think. So that's just kind of part of what writing is. You do write these characters and you make them up, but there's a little bit of you in all of them. I think I wouldn't be very good at any of the parts for a start. I would be awful. As an extra, I'd be fine. That would be fine. I could walk in, have a pint in the pub, wave, and walk out again. That would be fine. And I love the idea of being like a victim or something in one of the books. That would be hilarious. The person who gets killed, that would be great fun. And there's my horror stuff. Again, plenty of opportunity to be a character in that, but it would never be one of the main characters. I'd be terrible. I mean, that would involve acting. And no, good God, no. I can act an idiot on stage. I'm quite good at that. I used to do a lot of school events, which was always tremendous. Like you talk about another great memory, and it was tough, but I used to do 60, 70, 80 school visits a year, where you'd go into a primary school or a secondary school, you'd do a big presentation about yourself, books, writing, the importance of reading, how it'll change your life, blah, blah, blah. And then I'd do creative writing sessions with the kids. And that was amazing. And a big part of that was the big presentation you do. And I'm fine to jump up on stage, act like an idiot for 3/4 of an hour. But the idea of putting on a character would be terrifying. I've got my mate Lex Shrapnel. He's a actor on various TV shows, and he's fine with all that kind of stuff. That's what he does. I don't. I never will. We can all be thankful of this.
I've got a comment from Leslie with a book recommendation for my brother. I read Hostage, apparently, by Claire McIntosh. Must be something to do with people being... If you're a nervous flyer, you don't want to listen to him before you go on holiday. It's not the best. Someone's asked how you'd want to die in a book. So if you made yourself a victim, how would you want?
How would I want to die?
In a book.
In a book with pointy things in my head. Goodness me, that's a really good one, isn't it? I quite like that. You'd always say heroically, wouldn't you? But no, I think it'd have to be something unnecessarily violent, with lots of fighting and being awful at it and just being destroyed. I think I've loved horror all my life, and goodness me, the amount of death scenes that I've seen. I think one of the classics in not the best horror film, I think it's Jason H2O or Jason in Space, one of those. Ridiculous. But there's one where one of the victims, their head is dunked into a sink filled with liquid nitrogen and then brought out and broken into pieces on the side. And it's so well done and it's so shocking and ridiculous. That's an amazing way to go. Have your face frozen and then smashed apart like china. Brilliant.
Cool. I would probably do something involving fire.
Fiery death.
Yeah, maybe. I did once manage to set part of myself on fire. special talent.
I used to have long hair, so I've set that on fire quite a lot. I was camping with my 2 brothers and a couple of mates a good few years ago, and we had a little barbecue between, in the middle of us. We were all having a few beers, and it was getting late. And my middle brother has a reputation for being a bit of an idiot when it comes to fire, and he had what he thought was an empty Zippo tin, and he stabbed it with a penknife and just threw it on the fire. Unfortunately, it still had some of the Zippo fuel, and this fireball erupted and set my face on fire, which at the time was both shocking and hilarious. And I came home with all my eyebrows singed, little bobbles on all of my hair. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to do, set your face on fire.
I've not done that. I've set my hand on fire. But I do have a bit of a reputation as liking fire. I'm a stage pyrotechnician.
Oh, cool.
As well. Oh, I could be if I wanted to. I've got the sort of qualification for it.
Awesome.
Which is fun. So if you're writing so fast, do you plot heavily in advance?
I'm a mix of both. So you've got plotters and pantsers. You've got plotters who plot every single detail, and then you've got pantsers who don't plot a damn thing and just go, well, hey, let's see what happens next. So I do a bit of both. So there's a bit of plotting that goes on, which I think is quite important. So you've got an idea of what's going on, what's going to happen, and so on. But I also like to have the flexibility to see where the ideas go, to sort of allow the characters to breathe, which I think is quite important. The reason I was just looking to the side here is because there's a quote from Terry Pratchett on this. This is what Mr. Wonderful Pratchett said. I certainly don't, for me, this explains kind of it. I certainly don't sit down and plan a book before I write it. There's a phrase I use called the valley full of clouds. Writing a novel is as if you are going off on a journey across a valley. The valley is full of mist, but you can see the top of a tree here and the top of another tree over there. And with any luck, you can see the other side of the valley, but you cannot see down into the mist. Nevertheless, you head for the first tree. So you have, points that you want to get to in the story. That's got to happen, that's got to happen. But the colouring in bits in between, you don't necessarily know. So an example of this for me is one of the characters, Jim, has a dog called Fly. Now, I didn't plan to put Fly in a book. I didn't plan to have a dog in the book. I was writing, and Jim walked into the office carrying a dog. So I then had this dog to deal with. If I was sticking to a plan, that wouldn't have happened. But instead, I allowed myself sufficient flexibility to have. And now I've got this new character. Another one is where one of the characters' wives ends up. You find out that she's pregnant, and so on. All these kind of little things like that. For me, if I planned in complete detail, I wouldn't have the flexibility to allow that to happen. So I have to allow the character and my story to breathe. But I also need to know some of the points that I'm trying to get to. It's like exploring. That's why I think that's such a good description by Terry Pratchett. You're exploring this area, and you can't know everything, and half the fun is, going off and exploring it yourself.
Well, Terry Pratchett is probably one of the best writers there's ever been, isn't he?
Yeah. And Stephen King famously says that he never plans a damn thing. But I think I would think he probably does something similar to what I've just said there from Terry Pratchett, where you have some ideas, and that's kind of a plan, but you write between them and allow yourself to go off here, there, and everywhere while you're doing it.
It probably depends on the era of Stephen King as well, because large amounts of times in his writing career, he doesn't remember some of the things he did.
Oh no, I love Carrie. Carrie's such a good book, and I loved his collection. Full Dark, No Stars, wonderful.
I didn't get to the end of that. Andrew wants to know if you set some of your book in a police station where all the guys sit and discuss the crime before the killer is exposed?
Say that again. Do I do that, or
Do you do that? He says, do you set some of it in a police station where all the guys sit and discuss the crime before the killer is exposed?
you have that as part of it because that's part of the procedure anyway. So, the team will get together in the morning as part of normal police life. You have an action book which are written down, and what's written down in the action book is the tasks for the day, for the week that each of the officers and the PCSOs have got on, and then you'll have if there's a big crime scene, you'll have the scene guard who's listing what's going on, who's going in, who's going out. And you need to bring the teams. And also, I think those scenes are kind of important anyway. Otherwise, you've just got people drifting off everywhere. And it allows you to bring the detail of what's going on, kind of remind the reader of bits and bobs, and then send the team back out again. But team meetings where they sit down and talk about things around the board, that happens, and it's something that you see everywhere, and it does actually exist. So, yeah, of course, I have the team sit down, have a cup of tea, have a chat, sort things out, send each other out on jobs, discuss a few things. Sometimes it's interrupted by something else or whatever. But yeah, so it's part of what happens in the police life, and so yeah, I have that very much in the books.
Do you consult on police procedures?
Yes, I do. So I've consulted I had someone who was sort of from the firearms side of things. I've got someone else who is an ex-police officer, and it's quite interesting because people will read, the people who read it and read stuff and go, oh, it's not accurate, the police aren't like this. You generally find it's not actually the police readers that are saying that. It's just Joe Public. Whereas you get the police who are reading the books and they go, well, if you wrote like it actually is, the books would be turgid nonsense, really boring. But what you have to do is you kind of season it. If you have too much salt in something, it just tastes of salt. If you have too much police in it, it's just, oh my God, this is just police, police, police. And what you need to do is just put enough seasoning, so enough police stuff in there to make it realistic enough. And, so like a scene guard, like, using the board, that kind of stuff. And it's the same one because I've written military stuff. It's the same kind of thing. I've never been in the military. My brother's ex-forces. I've got friends who are ex-forces. I have a gun license. I've jumped out of planes. I've done full contact fighting. You can use all that to give your stories enough flavor of authenticity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it can be accurate and pacey and fun. I think the Bridge books are like a really good example of really accurate police procedures done well, because they were in the police, and they will not have it being accurate, but their books are amazing.
Yeah.
To read. You don't lose anything from the accuracy. If you know what I mean. In the plot, it just makes them even better. Someone's asked if you hide any secret jokes in your books or Easter eggs.
The Easter eggs are very much, and there's a quote from Red Dwarf that I used, and I think only one person has spotted that. There are a couple of things that I have put in there. There's also, as I've mentioned earlier, the connection between myself, Barry, and Gordon. Also, I have killed off. So that's another thing that I've done, and Barry's done. I think I've been a victim in various books. I killed Barry in book 2, I think. Those kind of things are always a bit fun.
Fair enough. We're getting close to the end. We've got about 10 minutes left.
Dear God.
If you could write with another author, who would you co-write with?
Co-writing with another author? Goodness me. I'd like to write with Joe Paver, with Michelle Paver, because she's phenomenal. I just found the book Dark Matter and then Thin Air, I think it was. There's such beautiful, haunting stories that I would like to learn how to write like that, because it's just extraordinary, and that would be quite an experience. I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Would you go back to writing in other genres, or are you going to stick to crime now?
I've got an idea for an action thriller that I want to do, which kind of has a military leaning to it, about a homeless soldier, which I'd really like to do. And I've written sort of, I think, about 10,000 words of that, which would be good fun to do. I wouldn't mind doing horror again. And it's, I've kind of got the freedom to do that now, which is nice. I don't have to write something and worry about, will my agent like it, blah, blah, blah. Going independent allows you that freedom to explore new ideas. And if, I wrote a full novel and thought, yeah, this is okay, I could send it to a few beta readers, see what they think, then, go from there, really. So I'm not gonna, I've moved into crime just because a few friends said, go on, give it a go, see what happens. And I'm really enjoying it. So to write in other genres, why not? It's fun. I like writing, horror, crime, military stuff, thrillers. It's all good. I've written children's stuff for 8-year-olds. I've written teenage stuff. I've written sort of fantasy things. So yeah, all kinds of. I even thought about, wouldn't mind writing a bit of sword and sorcery. You never know, a bit of a laugh. I was a big fan of Dragonlance Chronicles. I was talking about this. I think it was, all that kind of stuff I grew up on as well, and all that fantasy thing would be great fun.
No, Dragonlance was great. Do you how do you find the marketing aspect of being like a independent?
I find marketing baffling at the best of times, and I kind of glaze over. But I think the books seem to have generated enough of an interest anyway, which has been quite nice. But I run Facebook ads, I run ads through Amazon. Other than that, I haven't done any other kind of marketing. I am on Twitter, I am on Instagram, whatever the hell that's about. So I haven't done that much. I'm trying to learn it, and I've got my partner is kind of learning that and doing a course on Amazon advertising and Facebook marketing and all the rest of it. And the more we write, the more we'll do more advertising. But for me, what's content is king. Unless you've got something to sell, there's bugger all use knowing about how to market it. You need something to sell. So my focus has very much been on, writing good stories that people like and having enough of them out there to sell. So, we've, as I say, it's 6 Grimm books are out there now. Book 7 is out at the end of September. You need the content. And then once you've got a lot of content, it's much easier to market. Trying to market one book is considerably more difficult than trying to market a series of books. So, if that makes any sense.
You've been asked if you'd write romance.
God, no. I'd be awful at it. It's not a genre I read anyway. And I would obviously read some before I even gave it a go. But romance comes into the stories that I'm writing. So rather than writing specific romantic novels, that's not the romance is part of what the characters are going through. So, I have, people are desperately asking, is Grimm going to get a girlfriend? And there's a good chance that it might happen. Yes, it maybe will possibly happen, and that'll be something that I'll have to and enjoy including. There was a blossoming romance between Gordanian Haig, who's the detective inspector, and the local female vicar. So, which is really nice. That kind of stuff is good. But the idea of just dedicating a book entirely to the ups and downs of romance, I'm not sure.
Watch some Bridgerton. Might give you the inspiration.
Is it good?
I don't know. I like it, but then I do like some romance books. I'll read anything pretty much, apart from steampunk.
I'm not saying I'm a cold-hearted bastard. One of my favorite films is While You Were Sleeping. I love that. Everyone loves a nice romantic film. I love that. So yeah, I do have that. But yeah, I just don't think I'd be very good at it. because I don't have the interest. And I think if you're going to write something that's going to read okay, you kind of got to be interested in it anyway. You know, you have to want to write the thing that you're writing. Yeah, you can write, you know, you weaponize your writing. So, you know, you can write different things, but you've still got to be interested in what you're writing. And I just don't think I would be interested enough in romance to write a romantic novel or a romantic series.
Sorry, I was distracted. We've got some posts going on about our charity auction. I don't know if you've seen it going on. We've cracked the £3,000 barrier yesterday.
Bravo.
All going to a special school.
Yeah.
In Northampton, and someone's just given us a really kind donation that popped up on my message.
Nice.
So it's a good cause.
Definitely.
We've had a very busy UK CBC August, arranging it and making it happen.
Cool.
But it's very good. One of the good sides of being an admin of this group, I think, sometimes you get to do nice things.
Yeah, I can see that. And that's one of the great things I've found with doing crime, really, is just the readership have been fantastic, like amazingly enthusiastic and supportive, which I wasn't in any way prepared for or expecting. But that's been lovely. You know, there's a lot of support and there's a lot of, you know, understanding and enthusiasm from people, you know, and that means the world when you know there are people out there who, you know, really like what you're doing, you know, talk about your stuff. You know, they don't have to like everything you write. I mean, it would be a weird world if we all liked everything everyone else did. It'd be really boring. But the fact that some people do, and that I've got, you know, kind of super fans now who, you know, follow everything and buy everything and tell everyone about everything, it's amazing. And I wouldn't be doing it now if it wasn't for groups like this one. It's amazing. So I'm very appreciative, it has to be said. I always try and sort of join in if there are conversations where, you know, cheese and cake or whatever, or someone's mentioned me, I try and join in the conversation and just have a bit of a chat, because that's really important. I think, you know, you don't want to be aloof. You kind of want that connection with the readership. And that's been enabled with the wonderful world of social media. You know, it is an evil thing in many ways, but it's also a good thing in many ways when you sensibly.
Build in some Yorkshire parking in another one.
Oh, God, Yorkshire, nice bit of parking.
Love parking at Bonfire Night. It's amazing. You have pie and peas, parking.
Pie, peas and parking.
My dad makes amazing parking.
Well, I need the recipe.
It's superb. But it should be. It's a really good. That's a good Yorkshire treat. If you're having cake and cheese, you should have parking in it as well. You can't miss out the best Yorkshire delicacies.
Parking.
So when I don't eat fruitcake, but parking.
Yeah.
Proper alright with it. And you've not had bread and dripping either yet.
No, but I did used to. I kind of grew up on that as well. You know, the fat and the jelly bit from the beef. Very good.
Yeah, I grew up on that. My grandparents used to keep it after the roast.
See, there you are, you know, a while back saying we're not all flat caps and whippets, and now you're talking about beef and dripping on bread.
Yeah, but that's a good Yorkshire delicacy. We don't wear flat caps and have whippets.
But you apparently all eat beef and dripping on bread. So you're either one or the other.
You can have one and not the
pick and choose. You can't say, oh, we're not that, but we are this.
I'm going to read you a nice comment from Donna to finish. She said she's thoroughly enjoyed this chat, and on the basis of you being a cool and funny guy, she's going to check out and get your first book.
That's very nice, Donna. Thank you. Cool guy. How little they know.
Donna does interviews
like
as well.
Pardon?
Donna does interviews as well. So.
Well, you know, available for more nonsense on screen.
And on that note, we're at 8 o'clock. Show us some covers to finish off.
I guess this one really, because that's the most recent, Death Requiem, and this one's dedicated to Alid Jones. Now, everyone knows the name Alid Jones, who sang "Walking in the Air." A part of my other stuff is I am actually working with Alid on some books that he's put together. And I've basically been teaching Alid to write. So he's got children's books coming out, and I've basically been his writing tutor, which has been great fun. And we joked a while back about, wouldn't it be hilarious if I killed him in a book? So I did. So in this book, there is a singer who, from a choral group in the Dales, went on to make it big and ends up murdered in the church in Askrigg. And I dedicate the book to Alid. It was a bit of a laugh. And he's just read it. I think he's just finished it. So, yeah.
That's good. Laura Hamilton says she's also going to be exploring the series. So you're doing well here. Let's do more.
That's good. That's nice to know. Well, I hope you enjoy them. You know, that does help when people enjoy the stuff. But not everyone does, and that's fine. You know, you get good reviews, you get bad reviews. You know, I like stuff that other people don't like, and I don't like stuff that other people do. Like myself and my partner, we've got completely different reading tastes, completely, to the point where we just don't like the stuff that each of us read. It's just one of those things. And in many ways, that's half the fun of reading anyway, isn't it? You get to explore new stuff, and some stuff you like, some stuff you don't like. But yeah, give it a go. See what you think.
Marvelous. And with that, we just need to say thanks for coming to join us.
No problem at all.